Let me now also go across to Junaid Azim Mattu, who is the mayor of Srinagar. Thank you, Junaid, for joining us. Now, you have actually sent out a series of tweets saying you're angry, anguished, and deeply disheartened by what has happened at Hyderpora. We'll unpack many of the different points that you made, but just first, overall, explain to us what is it about this particular encounter which, as you said, has made you angry and anguished?
This Srinivasan is not the first incident of this type, and you have covered Kashmir for so many years, you know it, where the situation and circumstances are so murky. But in the aftermath of this incident, when the families and the children, the young 1-year-old toddler of one of the killed civilians was out on the road, the way the response of the police was extremely disheartening. It was very cold, it was very contemptuous, it was very insulting. And this presumption and this gall, this audacity that anybody in uniform who has passed the IPS exam can declare anyone in Srinagar guilty, can say that that person deserved to die, not only goes against everything in the constitution of our country, but also against every basic tenet of natural justice. It is very easy for the police to come out with its version. Srinagar is a very small place. Where I live, I have written this in my tweets. One of the slain civilians lives almost right across the road from my house, and his father was a village headman. And his children, I've seen his children
Altaf Ahmed Dar that you've spoken about.
This is Altaf.
Right.
Altaf Ahmed Butt. He's actually Altaf Ahmed Butt.
Okay.
Yes.
But, yes.
And this whole thing that, first the police said that, he was an OGW, and then they said, oh, he was a civilian and he was shot dead. So much inarticulation, so much contempt in the face of such a tragedy. It was heartbreaking. It's disheartening. And, when I pass the area where they live, I just bow down my head in shame. It could have been handled better. Now that a probe has been ordered, it is also a magisterial probe. NHRC guidelines and Supreme Court observations mandate a magisterial probe in every encounter.
Right.
Even if a combatant is killed in an encounter. A policeman does not have the free and arbitrary right, or a security force personnel, to take a life. What was demanded unanimously across the board, Srinivasan, in this instance was a judicial probe with some element of neutrality and independence and impartiality.
Right.
In the atmosphere that we are living in today, as the mayor of this city, I will tell you, it's a very cruel joke to expect a poor ADM or an SDM go against the version of the Inspector General of Police. That ADM or SDM is not going to be able to do that. That atmosphere of investigative independence and truth sadly doesn't exist right now.
We're talking to Junaid Azim Mattu, mayor of Srinagar, on the snowballing controversy over the Hyderpora encounter. The thing about the fact that you came out so strongly, Junaid, was that you are you're the mayor of Srinagar. So in that sense, you're part of the system. It's not like you're a politician who's sort of, in a sense, outside protesting. Now, surely you would have had access to those within the establishment to be able to convey your anguish at all? Were you able to have any of these conversations with anybody about how all of this has been handled? And if so, what were you told?
Yes, private conversations I did when it happened. The space for officially communicating anything of this nature sadly does not exist in today's Jammu and Kashmir. But in private conversations with a lot of people, I did raise this up. I said that this will eventually be very counterproductive, and that this whole policy of kinetic policing and focusing all energies and focus of law and order and policing measures on neutralizing terrorists and killing terrorists, and not focusing on the fact that the conflict in Jammu and Kashmir has deep psychological roots, and that needs to be that needs to be equally emphasized on. I have conveyed all these things to the highest of quarters in private conversations.
What's the response?
I do intend to write to the Honorable Prime Minister too.
Okay.
Well, the response is, Srinivasan, see, the conversation that you have, if you have it with somebody who knows the conflict, who has worked here for the last 20 years, who understands the topography and the cultural context of what is happening, and understands what happened in the 90s, then you can expect a very rational conversation with differing points of views, which is fine. But the problem is that if you look at the bureaucracy or if you look at the police leadership, you will see no Kashmiri or Kashmiri faces or faces from Jammu. And you have covered Kashmir for so long in conflict. Jammu and Kashmir always had a very very careful balance between local and non-local police officers, and that was done for a reason. That sadly doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not for a moment saying that somebody who's non-local is not a good officer. I am saying something slightly more nuanced, that you need local police officers in situations like these. You need local police officers and local administrators in circumstances like these to understand what is happening, because their wealth of human intelligence, their connections with the society, their understanding of the social constructs and complexities of the society cannot be matched just because of somebody having a cadre superiority.
Right.
So these are things I have said, and as I said in my tweets, I had said this in the aftermath of the minority killings, and sadly I was threatened with an FIR for saying that.
No, that's the point which I wanted to ask you about, because that's quite a startling allegation you made, that when you spoke about the targeted killing of minorities, you say that you demanded that you stop calling these terrorists as militants. You were threatened with an FIR for daring to question the police, and you say since then a police officer has summoned elected corporators and promised them huge sums of cash to dislodge you.
Yes, the first instance, I questioned the way the police was functioning by sidelining local officers who have, as I said, a wealth of human intelligence. I questioned, I asked police if they had intelligence inputs about attacks on minorities, and the Inspector General of Police himself, in front of somebody very responsible and powerful, told me that the SSP Srinagar wanted to file an FIR against you for saying that and asking that question, and I stopped him. And imagine, I'm the mayor of Srinagar, the first citizen of this city. Anyways, those are the strange times that we live in.
Right.
The second thing that I have mentioned, a few elected representatives had gone to meet a police officer a few days back, and when they came back, they made this admission in front of the entire corporation. That a specific police officer who was not very happy with these statements said that he will pay any amount to each elected representative to somehow dislodge me from the position of the mayor of Srinagar.
Gosh. Okay, last question though to you, because there seem to be broadly, as I say, two views on what has happened in Hyderpora. There are a bunch of people, some of the political leaders saying, we're not getting into the who or what of the people who were killed. We just want the bodies to be returned to the families. That's the basic dignity. There are others who are saying that, but also raising questions over whether the people killed were terrorists at all. Where do you stand on this? Because it's still, as I said, the inquiry is still to happen. So the identity of these men, were they in fact terrorist enablers or not, all of that is still not officially determined.
My sense of alarm rises primarily from the very inarticulate explanation given by the J&K police. In the case of Altaf, they started by saying that he had militancy links, and then they went on to say that he was a civilian who was killed in the exchange of fire. There are apprehensions that both Altaf and Mudassir were used as human shields. Now the fact that Mudassir was running an unauthorized call center and had computers in his possession, as if computers are contraband or weapons of mass destruction, that is being constructed into a case. I believe in the institutions of this country. I believe in the in the fact that a probe will be impartial and neutral, but that probe needs to be conducted by a judicial authority. I'm telling you very honestly, an SDM or an ADM in these circumstances will not dare go against the version propounded by the police. Second, about the dead bodies, the Supreme Court of India, the Constitution of our country, Article 21 of the Constitution, Supreme Court observations have repeatedly said that the dead body of a citizen of this country has the same fundamental rights as a living human being of this living human being of our country, a citizen of our country, has. The right to a dignified burial, the right for his family to see his or her mortal remains, and the right of that dead person to be buried, to have his final rites conducted with dignity.
Right.
They were civilians, they were non-combatants. Their involvement will be established or negated by the probe. But have we become so weak that we can't hand over the dead bodies
Right.
of non-combatants to their families? These are citizens of India for the conduct of their final rites.
Okay.
That has been a very disheartening, very upsetting facet of this.
Okay.
I've seen the children of Mudassir, the young 1-year-old
Yes.
daughter of Mudassir, weep, and that has broken my heart.
Okay. All right. Well, there are some reports that there is a consideration of whether they might actually be returning the bodies, but let's see how that pans out. Thank you so much, though, for joining us, Junaid, Mattu. Thanks very much.
Thank you.